Right, welcome back everyone. We're going to make a start, so grab a seat, sit down. We need to get going. I don't want to let it drift too far this afternoon. Okay, we're going to make a start. I hope you enjoyed your first workshop session and I hope you're all ready for your next one tomorrow. As long as I've got everyone's attention, we'll move on to session 2. Session 2 is all about developing the right leaders. I think we all recognise that the next few years we're going to need the right people in the right place at the right time. So it's a very timely topic that we're going to cover and wrap off the first day with. It's also about time we heard from some monitor farmers, so I'm very pleased that they're going to feature heavily in the next lineup. Also with one eye on the future, we were quite keen that we'd give the opportunity for 2 of our younger monitor farmers, so you'll be seeing that as well. So to start us off, we're going to have Georgie Cossins. Georgie runs the Blandford Monitor Farm with her father James down in Dorset, where the family have been based since the 19th century. So who better than to talk about succession planning? Georgie, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So yes, my name is Georgie Cossins, Blandford Monitor Farmer. So I was approached earlier this year by Philip Dolber, whom you all know, and he asked me to talk about the entirely uncontroversial subject of succession. So here's what I understand the word succession to mean: a process in which we plan for the future. To me, that is an important definition because it highlights that it is a simple, everyday thing. This morning, I planned how I would get to this conference room. Tomorrow, I will plan what I will have for my dinner. Now, I don't wish to trivialize what the process of succession entails, but what I do want to get away from is this idea of a looming terror which farmers have to fear. It's actually an everyday activity in which we all engage. So a little bit about me first. I studied English literature at university and did a master's in journalism. I then saw the light and returned to farming. I knew that farming wasn't just a thing one could pick up, and I wanted to learn my trade. So I did a 2-year agricultural diploma at Kingston Moorwood College. I worked on the farm during that time and have been full-time ever since. I love it. I get to work with my dad, who is also my boss and an excellent farmer. The business is located in the Tarrant Valley in North Dorset. We farm just under 2,500 acres in total, and it's a mixed farm of arable, dairy and beef. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, the word succession inspires fear and loathing in the majority of farmers. Our stereotype of it invokes the prospect of our own mortality, which no one wants to think about, as well as an image of feuding, squabbling siblings all grasping for power and assets. It's no coincidence that our most famous dramatist chose this issue as the setting for his most violent of plays. But this is the stereotype I want to get away from. It's false, unhelpful, and actually prevents families from working successfully into the future. It's actually harmful to farms and relationships, and it's an issue of urgency that we put aside this conception. Now, before I go on to articulate some of the principles that can replace this stereotype, I first want to say what I'm not going to do in this talk. There are very many technical issues surrounding law and taxation which I am not qualified to talk about. I'm also not going to offer a one-size-fits-all solution to all farms. I don't think it exists, and it can be a complicated issue that I don't want to trivialize. My aim is, however, to suggest the values which I seek to have regarding this subject, which I believe can be applied across all scenarios. So, with those caveats aside, here are my 5 principles of succession planning: dialogue, clarity, transition, motivation, and creativity. So no parent wants to be talking to their child about money and the division of assets. It's a very difficult thing to do. When I first met my father-in-law, who is a tax advisor, he sat me down and said very sternly, "Now, I have one piece of advice to give you. Never mix business and family." And I thought, too late. However, there has to be dialogue and communication as a starting point for any succession plan, and this has to be done in a professional manner. I would advise every farmer to ask their adult children very plainly and very honestly what, if any, involvement they wish to have on the farm in the future. And from the children's side, they need to be very honest with themselves about what future they want. I think there is a great tendency for children to fear that if they don't wish to farm, they will somehow lose out in the future. And this causes the young generation to be quite cagey and emotional when having these discussions. So it is incumbent upon the farm owner to ease this fear as much as possible and to create an environment where people can speak honestly and openly. I want to underline at this point the difference between owning assets and managing them. There needs to be a separate plan for both. And on the practical side, these conversations, they can't happen over the phone or on the farm radio, or even whilst ploughing or harvesting. There needs to be time set aside specifically for meetings on this subject. And things aren't going to be resolved in one meeting either. Far from it, in fact. Therefore, these meetings need to be arranged with consistency and regularity. My second principle is clarity. This should result from good dialogue. The point about clarity is that everyone should have a knowledge of what they're aiming for and how they're going to achieve those aims. What I cannot overemphasize is that the sooner a plan for the future is laid out, the better it will be for all parties concerned. Farmers sometimes think that succession is an issue to be resolved either when they retire or when they die. This is a huge error in thinking and does a disservice to young people as well as to the future of the business. How can we plan for the future if we don't know what the future holds? In fact, it's worse than that, because how can young people act with full commitment in the present if they are anxious about what they're going to be doing in 20 years' time? So make a plan early and make sure that people are on board with that plan. Succession is not that, not a cliff edge jump. That's the idea we must get away from. It's a continual, ongoing process of a transferal of responsibilities. From a young person's perspective, I want to make clear that we're not trying to bump off our elders. But what we are doing is seeking an apprenticeship in learning how to do the job. We've all heard the story about the 50-year-old son who still can't sign a cheque for the farm. That is absolutely not how it should be. But nor should the young person be expecting to take over full responsibility at 30 while sending the old man off to NFU meetings. There needs to be a slow transferal of jobs, and it is even possible that the plan made for the future goes into specific details of what the young person could be doing over time, whether it be oversight of the workshop, ordering of fuel, office jobs, and so forth. The list goes on. Farming is not an industry that's easy for young people to come into. Part of the reason for this is the lack of infrastructure about how they can progress into the future. If you want to keep young people in the profession and motivate them to stay and work hard, then you have to show them what opportunities and prospects lie in store. I've put words like goal, challenge, incentive, power on that slide because these are the things they need to be given in order to motivate them successfully. Professional development is a buzzword in many industries at the moment, and it's not something that we should overlook either. A future manager needs training in all aspects of the farm so that they have a clear understanding of operations. I myself have been encouraged to do courses on management, including the John Edgar Trust. And on farm, I've also had the chance to do a diverse range of activities, from milking cows to combine driving to the office work. One of the things I learned on that John Edgar Trust course was the importance of diversification, particularly in turbulent times. A clear plan for the future gives the young person the impetus and drive to come up with ideas and possibilities for the farm that haven't been thought about before. That's what progress and innovation is all about, and that's what a good succession plan can do for the farm. If we want young people to be creative and to have ideas about taking farming into the 21st century and beyond, then we have to give them the opportunity to create business plans, implement the good ones, and sometimes even fail in their implementation. Much better that they make mistakes under your guidance and supervision rather than in 30 years' time on their own. Diversification projects that we've thought about on our farm have included a butchery, a milk vending machine, film sets, leaf marking our beef, and growing soya. Now, not all of these ideas can or should work, but support to think about them has been very important to me. So, my conclusion is that though succession shouldn't be about fear and war, there are still no easy answers. But that shouldn't blind us to the things that we can do. Even if you're planning on splitting the farm, if you know that's what you're going to do early on, then you can prepare for it better in order to grow both sides of the business so that each is stronger. We have to change our mindset about succession, treating it professionally with open minds and a positive outlook. Thank you.
Perfect.